Hi everyone and welcome back. So in the previous video we were able to write our queries and we were able to fetch the data like post and comments with the user and author information with the post and author information with the comment. Now this looks like we put everything inside a single file, right? Now let's give a particular structure to our project and we can follow that structure later. So let's create one resolvers here, resolvers folder where we are going to keep our all the resolvers, and instead of keeping this is a mock.js, we can rename it to db.js because for now this is our database. Okay, and then we can have one index.js which is like the main file inside source. Okay, let's import it. Inside source we have resolvers dbjs index.js. Okay, and we can also move out this particular schema. Okay, so what we can do is we can create one file inside source. Let's say new file schema dot graphql. We are introducing new file extension and we also need to compile it, but we will take the help of babel to do this. And let's move our type definitions. Whatever we can see inside type we can put here. So the advantage of this is you don't need to worry about these backticks and inside type definitions, and we will pass it separately. So this is our type definition file. Here we have type query, user, post, comments. Okay, now we will also talk about our resolvers and we will move all those resolvers into these files. Let's say this is a folder, so let's say create a new resolver. First of all, let's say query.js, which will take care of execution of all the queries. If we have any mutation.js, and we have other types like comments, posts, user. We'll create all the different files because we are writing the resolver functions for them. User, another is a post, and what other files we have? User, post, comment. I think that's all we have. Now start moving things here. So if we talk about the comment, right, so we can go to index.js and this is the simple definition we have, and we can export this into our comment.js. Inside resolver we can create comment. Things are going little slow because we are doing restructuring, so bear me with that. On that const comment, this can be a simple function. Okay, there is a typo, and here this is a simple function we have written. Comment has author information, right, and we can export this, export default comment. Okay, similarly we can put something for the posts. Okay, so for the post the definition will be, if you go to our index.js we have author and comments. For post thing, yes, we have author information. Now things will, we will start removing things from the index.js. This is comments. Similarly we have posts. Okay, here we can also have a comment. There is one more comments, which comments is doing nothing but it is returning a comment for a particular post, right? It is also taking a look on to the same data. Now it is context. and we will talk about how we can get this data source. So here currently we have comments which we are going to get from the DB. We will import the DB here, like const give me users comma comments equal to require, and this is our initial approach, but this is not going to be the final approach. To do it like this, we are going to use the GraphQL way of doing things. This is the post, and then we have a user. Okay, so user also will have the same thing. Here we will put the user here instead of DB. We are going to use users for now. I will explain what this DB is just in the next example. Here we have a context, right? So we have set up everything. Export default user, and now in the queries we will define all the queries. We don't have a mutation yet, so our queries, how these look like. If you go to our query, we can just use const query, and we can define all our functions from index.js, and we will remove it. So you can see these all are our queries. Copy and paste. And for now these resolvers we don't need, so let's clean them out. Type definitions and resolver. Let's go to our query, and here we can paste all these. So these functions are still the same. These are the queries, right? User, post, comments and all. Now we put like queries, different types, resolvers, and this schema.graphql file separately. How we can group all these things together, that we will do inside index.js. Okay, currently what all things are left here? Simple server. So we are going to import everything here from the resolvers, from the mutations and all. So let's say import query from, we have written the resolvers. Inside this we have a query. We will import it from there, and here once we have a query, we can create a server. Server is already there. What we need to pass is type definitions and resolvers, right? So let's put it in a little bit details. So here we need two things: type definition, which can be a GraphQL schema file. Okay, so you need to pass the path for this inside this particular folder. We have, okay, we have directly this particular file. This is there, and then we have a resolvers. This is another argument. Inside resolvers, it can be simple object where you define all your resolvers. Okay, we'll talk about all the other arguments in the GraphQL server. We have the type definition, resolvers, and you can also pass context. For now, let's pass this as an empty object, and then we will discuss about it, what all things we can pass inside context. Okay, so inside source we have everything. So these are the resolvers, db, index.js, schema, and inside index.js our type definitions should be coming from root path, otherwise we may get error. So it is inside source, schema, GraphQL, resolvers. Okay, resolvers, you can put query. If you have written mutation, you can put that. Otherwise we have like this: user, post and comment, and we are going to import all these things. User, comment, post, right? I can just copy these from my example. We don't need this DB instance here. Okay, we can pass user, post, comment, right? The same thing, same example. Now we just distribute things into different files, different folders. Like schema will have its own folder, so we can define all our schemas. Now this can be as long as we want, like all different types. We can define type comment, post, user, query, and now we can also think about some mutations, right? Till now we were talking about all the queries, but we can also define mutation, and then inside resolver we have to define the mutation.js and have to define the implementation of all these mutations. So this is mutation. Let's say our first mutation is a create user. Okay, create user will take some input. Now we can also create a custom input here. Let's say create user input. This is a custom input because here the input payload will be an object, not just a string. Right, so create user, then similarly we have a delete user. I will talk about these two examples first. And this is id. So how we will access it? Using arguments.id, arguments.data, and this id is of type id, and it is going to return a user. Right, similarly we have update user. There can be another type, so what we need to pass here is id. This is the first argument, and data is another, which can be of another type, update user input. Now let's quickly, and these are required, right? Because in create, this is the required input, and once the create, update and delete is done, we are returning the user object. So we have to create this create user input. This is the new type we have defined. So this is the input type, create user input, and it is going to have a name of type string, which is required, email of type string, that is also required, and then we have is of type int, which is optional. So new type we have defined create user input. Similarly update user input, update user input. I hope this is clear what we are doing here. Inside update, I mean this is not a JavaScript, we are writing inside a .graphql, so automatically things will not appear. So this is create, then inside update we might be asking only a few small things like, okay, a partial payload, because we are already passing data, and all these things are optional because it's update, right? We are not creating, we are just saying, okay, if you want to pass, we will use these attributes to update. Let me see if I can format this. Oh, I can't format this. Okay, basic formatting is done. Yes, so these are mutations, and how we deal with the mutation? Same as query. The query is only for read-only data. Mutations are for updating the data. Okay, so same as query, we will define our mutation, and inside resolver we can create one. Mutation.js is already there, so here we can just say const mutation, and inside this object we can define our functions, create user, and every function, either a query and mutation, takes same set of argument, parent arguments. Here this is context and info. Okay, and here from the argument we can get all the data we need. So if you just see const data, I can access it from argument, and here I can check, okay, if the data is there, if this particular email is already taken, all these things we can do. Let's say first we will check email, argument.data.email. I'm just doing a destructuring const, then we will say, okay, email taken or email available, something like this, right? So what we will do is we have to import. For now we are importing these things, but in future we will do it differently. Import users from our DB. Okay, this is a JS file. So here we can say users dot sum. If any of the user having the same email ID which this new user is having, then we will not allow creating this user. So user.email is same as the email you are passing. If any of the record match with this, then we will say okay, you can't create this. If email taken, then here you can do a lot of things, throw new error. We can write custom exceptions also. Email already taken, blah blah blah, something like that. Okay, so we are going to write these kind of mutation functions, same as query. Let's say this is for create user, there is another function of date user, keep adding them. There is a delete user. For now we are just playing with the mock JSON object. This is the data we have and we are playing with this, but we will define a strategy to access the data even we are not using any kind of database. So this is a mutation. We will import this mutation inside our index.js, same as query. We can say this is our mutation, and we are getting it from a mutation file, and specify the mutation here. That's it. Okay, so this is the basic setup, restructuring of the same code into a different definition. Now we will see all this working in the next video.